This episode of the podcast has been brought to you by Sweet Cheetah Publicity. Sweet Cheetah is an inclusive, socially conscious PR collective that puts their money where their mouth is. They have a current roster of bands that reads like a greatest hits anthology. Brainiac, Catholic School, Jawbox, The New Amsterdams, Oceans in the Sky. I mean, the list goes on and on. They also do PR for record labels such as A La Carte, Arctic Rodeo, Steadfast, Rad Girlfriend, and so many more. How do they pay it forward? How do they put their money where their mouth is? By generating thousands of dollars in annual charitable donations to the likes of Women in Vinyl, Coalition of Communities of Color, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and many, many more. The man has the receipts. I've seen them. It is real. The artists, labels, and podcasts Sweet Cheetah works with are curated with an eye on local primarily.
If I could curse you with this, if I could you with this,
Woo! Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. I'm your host, Peter, and I am still here. The music you hear behind me is from the new album, Spill, by the band Dad Hats. Dad Hats had an album out in 2018. That was the first album. It's been a bit of a stretch. It was well worth the wait. Spill is an incredible piece of music, released by our buddy Austin over at Mind Over Matter Records. We love Austin so much here. We love everything he releases on his label. Phenomenal record label. Tonight, I sit with Nate and Tyler, the guitarists of Dad Hats. We get into the minutia of what this band is really about, their musical roots, their personalities. We break down what type of people they are based on Beatles songs and albums. You're not going to get that on any other podcast. Come on. Get a little business out of the way. If you love this show, if you want to be a part of the machine that drives this show forward, all you have to do is either like, rate, subscribe, review, any of the above, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, follow me on socials, share my stuff, and if you're feeling like giving up a little bit of cash money, you can donate to me via PayPal or Venmo, or you can subscribe financially, and in doing so, you will get a copy of the compilation album that is forthcoming, as well as one exclusive episode per month. You could do all that just by following the link on the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast, wherever you stream the podcast, or on Instagram, or on Facebook. Your choice. You have carte blanche. I'll get that. Boom, that's gone. That's put away. Locked up. We won't talk about it again tonight. What we will talk about is this incredible music that brings me back to a time when Fall Out Boy was still good.
I'm gonna need a home to say, I'm blowing down my stuck on the top rail for too long.
I'm not taking anything away from the boys. They're good at what they do. But Dad has stuff.
I'm in a truck with only rear-wheel drive, gasoline leaking, rim splitters hipping his top hat. But speaking of things that you forgot about, sacrifice the mere volcano if it'll keep your garden green. And when they get up from the table, is strong enough, no sleep is long enough to help, no drink is strong enough, no sleep is long enough to help, when all drinks don't even strong enough, no sleep.
That was just a small portion of the second single, RWD, or Rewind, off of Spill. If that's not an indication of how powerful, how poppy, and how passionate this record can get, I mean, I don't know what else you need, right? Come on. Without further ado, I give to you Dad Hats, talking about the new album Spill on Mind Over Matter Records, tonight on the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely. Everything sounds and looks great.
Right.
It's going to be just the two of us?
No, Tyler's going to be joining here in just a second.
Okay, great. I just to get it out of the way really quickly, this album is the fucking shit.
Oh, thank you, man.
Coming from an almost 47-year-old hardcore punk from the 80s, this is really, it's hitting a lot of sweet spots for me. I hear like a lot of Dag Nasty all the way through to like early Fall Out Boy and everything in between, and all things I enjoy, mind you. It's really a great cross section of really well done music. You guys are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Austin is a visionary when it comes to what he puts out. I love Austin. Everything he does, I'm 1,000,000% behind. I really fucking love this record. I liked your last record. This is so good.
Thank you, man. And
So
I think the records are night and day difference, I think.
They are. This is a more mature record. This is a more pop, sensible record. But the love of hardcore is still present in this, and I think a little more so.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a big fan of hardcore, like as a thing that I listen to on the side as well, as well as play. And we're actually not that far off in age. I'm almost 40, like, so a lot. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the bands that we draw comparisons to, it's like, yeah, that's what I grew up on. Like, I just saw Death Cab a couple nights ago. Like,
Nice.
yeah.
Hi, Tyler.
Hey, how are you, Peter?
Great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So, Tyler, we kind of hit the ground running, and I don't want you to kind of miss the accolades that I'm throwing Nathan's way, but I really love this record. And as I'd said to him, coming from almost 47-year-old hardcore punk from the late 80s, this hits all the right spots for me, from like Dag Nasty to early Fall Out Boy and a million other bands in between that I really appreciate. And as much as I like the last record, this one, as I'd said, there's as much hardcore in it as there is like the I'd call it melodic hardcore. People call it emo now and have for like over 20 some years, but back in my day it was melodic hardcore. And that's what you guys are doing, and doing very well. Like, you're surpassing any of the bands that are still kind of doing it and are newer, because unfortunately I think the bands that kind of filled that niche like 10 years ago, they changed so much. It had become almost boy band-esque in its delivery and its songwriting. I mean, you guys are very poppy, don't get me wrong, but in the best way possible. Like the Beatles were poppy. We love the Beatles. But you're not losing that anchor to, Gorilla Biscuits or to Bold or Sick of It All. Like there's still a through line that's apparent, but you're not leaning on it. You're just like plucking everything you like about these disparate bands and genres and making it your own. It's very incredible. It's a well done record.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. That was awesome. Thank you. Well said. We got to come back to that Dag Nasty reference at some point.
They're one of my all-time favorites. Dag Nasty were formative for me. One of the first bands I'd ever seen actually was Dag Nasty.
Yeah, we gotta come back to that one. I actually played a show with Dave Smalley once.
I love Dave Smalley. So if we could kind of like bring it back to the beginning, I guess, maybe not the beginning of the band, but the beginning of this record. Your last record was kind of a self-done affair, correct?
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Are you talking last record, like our first record?
Yeah.
So quite the opposite. So our first record we did in a studio, and we had another producer, and we just went in like the traditional band has songs, band records songs. This record we did do completely on our own.
Oh, okay. See, like if one were to go on socials or what have you, you look at the second longest driveway in Indiana, it looks like there's no record label on it. You know what I mean? It looks like it's just a self-done affair.
Yeah, and well, in that aspect, it is. And just to kind of elaborate there a little bit, as far as the demos and the production of that album, that we did all of that ourselves. So when we went into the studio, I mean, everything was ready to go, basically.
And like as far as the release of it, though, that was all you.
Yeah, we just kind of put it out on the internet.
And how was the response to that? Like just like kind of fledgling band throwing out the first full length. How was the response to that?
I think it was really good. I mean, we had a lucky set of circumstances in that we've got a really close-knit group of friends that are very supportive. And for a couple of us, this band was like our first foray back into playing music. Like for me, it had been about 8 years since I had been actively playing in a band. And we just got really lucky. We had some cool opportunities to get like our early music videos out there. So I would say, well, Tyler, what do you think?
No, it did too. And, for us as a band, it was also one of those albums. I mean, we look back on it now and it's like, oh man, we've been playing those songs for a while now. And there's some of them we still play in our set that what if we went back and re-recorded it? Like all these bands now are revisiting some of their, first albums and re-recording them and kind of like a new twist and everything. And there's definitely some songs on there that I wouldn't mind doing that with at some point. Even if it's just for fun throughout the band. But I mean, even all of our friends, I mean, they know the songs, they love the songs. And we're just excited for this new album to be out in the world and, just to share it with everyone.
It's funny too. It's coming out in 2 days, right? Or yeah, tomorrow. It's coming out tomorrow. Correct?
Yeah.
That's my wife's birthday, my father's birthday, and my father-in-law's birthday.
Whoa.
So I'm going to have to try and find a way to edit this down tomorrow and put it out into the world because I would like for it to be congruent with the release of the record. So I've got my work cut out for me on my wife's birthday. But it's not that difficult, really. But I find it odd that it all kind of came down on the same day. But how is the recording of the previous record versus this one? Since this one was, just on your own.
So the first record was we went for a weekend, and we had a weekend to record everything and like walk away with the mixes. We did some subsequent mixes, in the following weeks, but for the most part, we got everything done in a single weekend. Whereas the latest record, one, we wrote it over the pandemic, so most of the record was written not in a room together at all. There are a couple songs on the record we've never played in a room as a band together. But because we were doing it all on our own and in our singer Craig's studio, we could take all the time in the world. So we did like drums, a weekend just dedicated to drums. And it was nice that we could kind of flesh things out and really work on the production. And we were doing it ourselves. It wasn't on anybody else's dime. So we could take all the time in the world.
Right. And I think that probably has a lot to do with the sound of the record too, because you took your time with it. I think that's obvious. I think it's obvious that there was a lot of love and care put into it too. And as you'd said, the last record versus this one, night and day for a million different reasons. But I think, outside of the allusions to like hardcore of yore and punk of yore, there's more personality, I think, attached to this one. And I think that's because you got that time to kind of spend on it and to really hone it. Do you think that might be hitting the mark?
Yeah, I think so. Tyler?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard too, because I mean we all like, we've been a band for 5 years now, right? And we've grown together. We've been through a lot of things together, and especially I think this record is just the amount that we put into it all personally, right? From like just the long recording days to the demo process to everything. There's so much more that went into this one. And I think that's just what makes it that much more special.
And the fact that you do have a really, really excellent label behind it is it's pretty spectacular. Austin does not release duds. From like he's reissuing things that had happened in the past that were glaringly important to the scene, all the way up to now. He's just amassing this incredible roster. How did you guys kind of hit his radar?
So really, he's Joe's contact, and from what I understand is it's like the circle of friends, kind of like one friend adjacent is how Joe met Austin. And then really, I mean, Joe, he's our drummer. He handles just so much. He does so much of our creative, as well as being an amazing musician, but he also handles like a lot of our relationships like that. And he and Austin just hit it off. I think we sent him a couple of the demos as they were in progress, and he liked it. And from there, I mean, I feel like Joe put so much time and effort into cultivating that relationship, but for the rest of us, it was like, oh shit, we got a label. Like, That's crazy. That just happened overnight. When obviously it didn't. A lot of hard work went into it, and I think we'll be forever grateful for everything that Austin has done. I mean, we got to lay hands on the vinyl for the first times ourselves last night, and they're beautiful. I could not have wanted anything more.
Yeah.
I mean, not to mention too, like Austin puts so much care into the projects that he's working on. Like Nate said, we got to hold, the vinyl that we've been waiting on for a year and a half, like in our hands last night. And it's just such a cool feeling, right? But like then to see the jacket and, the part he like manually screen prints every single one, and just the care that he puts into it and how it comes out so pro, I think is you don't really see that too much anymore. You see a lot of DIY labels, pop up, but not a lot of them really put in that time. They're just like, okay, well, I'm gonna bring this band in, we're gonna sell some albums, we're gonna make a little money, and then I'm on to the next one, right? Yeah. And it's just the next one. So yeah, I mean, it's been stellar so far. Shout out Austin.
Yeah, Austin really has amassed kind of like a small family of artists that they're disparate in their way. Not everyone sounds the same. It's all different sorts of music, really, but it's all quality, from sonically all the way to, as you'd said, the finished product, the vinyl, the jacket. Everything is curated meticulously. I think this record deserves that. I think it actually commands that, because I listen to this and I do hear kind of like the best of, as I'd said, that like when Fall Out Boy were first starting to happen, when they were actually good. There was a wave of bands that came from the hardcore scene that were making uh, pop sensible emotional hardcore that, you know, could kind of like reach people who weren't necessarily tied to that scene. And to me, I could play this in front of people I work with, and it's mostly curmudgeonly men in their 50s, and they would find something to like about something like this. You know, like, and that makes all the difference in the world, really, because you're not preaching to the choir. You're not, you know, just kind of like playing to, you know, the easy audience. You could do
Yeah.
something, so you could transcend that with something like this. I know discussing things like that behind closed doors doesn't really happen if you're a good band. It just kind of goes down. But have you considered the idea that this is probably going to reach a lot more people than you would have imagined?
Tyler, you want to take that?
No. I mean, we're just like four nerds. I mean, we're not like I don't know. I mean, we started this band as just literally something. Hey, you want to kill some time and just like rock out and, you know, kind of drink some beers. To you know, we got 4 or 5 songs. Let's do an EP. No, wait, let's do a full length. And let's do another full length. You know, so the spiral of it, and then thinking like, oh, there's people that want to hear this. You know, it is kind of weird to us sometimes, but it's bad. I mean, even recently we've been reaching a lot of people all over, a lot of different countries. It's been really cool to see so far.
And
Yeah,
like,
I would.
there's that massive span too, right? Like between the last like full length record and this, to go from like that many years ago, that record happened, and now you've come with something that, like, respectfully, it's a year and a half old to you, but to all of us, it's brand new. To come out of almost what could be construed as left field with this magnum opus, that's going to smack the taste out of a lot of people's mouths. You know, I can imagine. I can imagine people are pretty excited about it anyway.
Yeah, I think we're really stoked on it, and the response. I mean, I'll echo what Tyler said. You know, it escalated. I mean, I guess not quickly in the sense that we've been a band for like 5 years, but I would have never thought, you know, like, one, at my age, and then two, and a lot of us had been touring musicians before and all took a break, and we're all like corporate boys with corporate jobs. Like our singer's a lawyer in his real life. And I don't think any of us were like, oh, at this stage of our life, we're going to sign a record deal and put out, you know, probably. I will say, you ask what we talk about behind closed doors. I'll say one thing that we've all acknowledged is it's the 100% the best thing any of us have put out into the world.
And most musicians, their best happens in their 20s. I myself, with my current band, I put out probably the best record I've ever written at age 41. I think there's a place for that now. I think back when we were all in our 20s, we didn't see, like, with the exception of a few, like, you know, when Civ happened and Sick of It All and stuff like that, bands were doing things in their beyond their prime that were still good. We didn't have too many examples of that, though. Now it seems to be okay, you know, to kind of like reach for the brass ring when you're up in years, as it were, as far as music's concerned anyway. I mean, we're not really that old, but for music, we're pretty fucking old, you know? And
You know, and a lot of go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say a lot of it's perspective too, right? Like, you know, even the way that Nate and I write, and the way that we'll, kind of throw ideas back and forth, it's changed over 5 years as being in a band. When we first started, if you listen to, the ideas that we would, kind of send each other, and then it kind of flops every once in a while, where it's like, Nate's gonna try more of a rhythm thing, and I'll do some lead stuff or whatever. And if you would have told me that when we started a band, I mean, I don't know if I would have thought that, it would kind of evolve that way.
Mhm.
But it's true. It's true what you say. Yeah, I'm excited for the next chapter up too.
Yeah. I think, going back to this idea that people are doing it later and later, I credit so much of that to the internet, because it used to be that like you're only seeing young bands because that's what the media that is carrying that stuff to you was going to show you. Now, if you're 50 and you have a computer, you can put your album on Spotify. Like nothing is stopping you from putting out that Magnus Opus in your 50s or 60s, like other than your will to do it. Like the floodgates are open. You want to put music out, just put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I were to kind of examine the music both of you were doing at that prime age in your like teens, early 20s, what would that have been versus now?
Oh, a lot of the bands that I toured with in my early days were like, we were just on the tail end of like the Hives, Vines, kind of like garage rock recurrence. And we just kind of timed that just terribly. If we had premiered like 2 years before, I think we would have had a chance, but we were just right on the dying end of that. But we did that for a while. And then I was in like we were Churches before Churches.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the band Churches. Yeah, we were. So I was in a band that was way too late and way too early. And that was my.
That's always kind
People
of
were
the
like,
way,
I
though.
don't get it. Where's the drummer? Why are the electronics doing the drum? And it's like, well, just wait. In a couple of years, when there's a cute girl like lead singer, you're gonna love this.
Yeah. I'm like, even so, like you never heard of Godflesh, you never heard of Sisters of Mercy. These bands didn't have drummers. Come on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
How about you, Tyler?
So late teens into early 20s, I was into, almost anything pop punk at the time, right? Like if it was catchy and it had some punk beats to it, that was my bread and butter right there. Still do. I mean, I listen to a lot of pop punk. Even that genre itself has kind of changed over time, right? On what it is and what it means to people. But no, I've always been a kind of like a pop punk guy. As I've gotten a little bit older, I've gone to a little bit more rock. A little bit more technical style instrumental music. Math rock, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But like, this isn't really that far of a cry from what you were doing then. It's just a more mature version,
Exactly.
And I think that comes through throughout the album, because there is that consistent punk kind of like undertone. But there's also like, I could kind of tell somebody loves the Beatles in this band. Somebody loves the Rolling Stones in this band, which I glean that from it because I like those things. They're a big part of my past, a big part of my my musical language. Is that something that kind of stems from your parents' music, things you had been into prior to, what you were doing in your teens and early 20s?
Yeah, I would say so. I was lucky to grow up with just really, really super supportive parents. Like I was playing piano at the age of 5 because they just recognized that I would like sing in the back seat, and they're like, okay, this kid wants to do music. The only thing they didn't support me in is when it came time for like the 18, 19 years, and I wanted to like go play music instead of go to college. Then there was a little shift. But yeah, my parents grew up on, the Beatles, the Kinks, like, all the good, a lot of Motown. I grew up on a lot of Motown. That was just kind of what I was brought up on, and my parents always had really good taste in music. What about you, Tyler?
Well, I think the Beatles reference. Are you speaking vocally?
I think more vocally, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
there is still musically a flourish that lends itself to something that melodic and that pop orientated. That isn't that far of a cry from something like the Beatles, from something like even T-Rex.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked is Craig, our vocalist and bass player, he actually has a side project, Zinger Chorus, that Nate dabbles in with him, and it's very, man, I don't even know how I would describe it. Just wild. Craig is an amazing musician, and he just loves to create music. He will try any instrument. He'll layer upon layer, and the stuff just comes out so cool. But it's a very like acousticy, folky, rocky, just kind of from doing that, and it even comes out like into our songs a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, those sorts of things, they're kind of ubiquitous. You can't escape them. If you grew up in America, they're touchstones. So even if they weren't like a big deal to you, they're going to find their way into your language. They're going to be a part of your culture, right? That's why whenever anything's poppy and good in a rock milieu, you think of the Beatles, you think of T-Rex, you think they're right there. They're in the ether. They're a part of it. I think what I'd also like to kind of know is, what are the struggles for you guys as people in your age group making music, holding down jobs, having families and the like? Like how do you kind of balance that, especially with, a new record that you're more than likely going to have to support by playing live? Is that a big hardship for you, or is it something that you can kind of figure out?
I think, honestly, we all are just kind of on the same page with it. I think we are at a point in our lives that it would take just a literally no-brainer deal for us to even consider touring. Like we're going to do little weekend jaunts, but like none of us are in the position to go like, all right, 2 months, let's get on the road.
Let's go. Pony up, Austin. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, can you pay 2 months of my salary? Let's talk. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we look at it as a hardship. If anything, I think we're lucky that we're at a point of our lives where we can be very secure about what we want. What we want is to put out a great piece of music, and hopefully it gets to as many ears as possible. But we're very realistic about, what we can do on top of it.
There's that internet of it all too, where you don't really have to, like, it would help, but you don't really have to go out on like a 2-month like banger of a tour to get an album heard. All you have to do is have some good music and some decent PR, and people are going to hear it. That's a beautiful thing about this day and age. And I do bemoan, the internet age, because I'm a Luddite. I grew up without the internet. That wasn't even a thing until I was in college. But now you can conceivably not tour and have an album that is widely enjoyed.
Oh yeah.
That's a big strength right now. And, I applaud anyone who can still, in that flooded market, have something that, strikes a chord with people. What's going on kind of behind the scenes with that? Do you have like publicists that are helping out with that, or is all of this just happening that organically?
Well, I would say first, shout out to our PR company, Sweet Cheetah, who I think you know. Yep.
Oh yeah, Tim's one of my best friends. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, they've been great. But a lot of it has been organic. I mean, like I said, Joe, if you see a piece of like most of our videos are Joe. Most of any piece of contact you see on our like Instagram or all these little teasers, that's Joe. He puts in tons of hours just making all that stuff look great, and we do it organically, and we kind of learn as we go. We all had a good giggle like halfway through the promotion. One of our friends sat us down and we're like, hey, listen, we really got to talk to you guys about hashtags. Like, you're not using hashtags on any of your posts. Like we got to talk into, and we're just kind of learning as we go.
I know nothing about hashtags. Not my thing, but we've gotten through all kind of like the lighter side, and I kind of poked my head into what could like be construed as the darker side, but the whole impetus of this show, the thrust of it, is based around one thing, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with my show. I always ask the same question. It's the only thing I have pre-prepared, and it is this, and I will posit it to you. If it's too much of a bummer, you don't have to answer it. But I always ask every guest what it is that terrifies them on an existential level, because that kind of gives me a window into the personality of that specific guest.
Open water. Freaks me the fuck out. Can I swear?
It makes sense.
Freaks
That's the
me
infinite.
Fuck out.
It's the infinite.
Terrified of just like going down in a plane or being on a cruise and it's sinking, being eaten by like some crazy creature that no one's ever seen and no one knows about it. That's like my biggest fear.
No, I mean, that's fear of the infinite, fear of the unknown. You're kind of, those are very, very base, fears for the human condition. It makes sense. How about you, Nathan?
Okay. So I am either blessed or cursed, however you want to look at it, to have one of those brains that like I will try and conceive of every terrible outcome of any given situation, and I'm usually pretty good about pulling myself back from that edge, but sometimes you just go down a rabbit hole of like, well, what would I do then, and then what would I do then, and that will always fill me with inevitable dread, because it always ever leads one place.
Right.
Yeah. So all stories end at the same location.
Yeah, but no matter which way life goes, they all end in the same location. It's
Yep.
I don't know. I think the fears that really drive creativity are the unfounded ones, almost. Like mine, for example. Watching Nova. Do you remember Nova, the television show on PBS about the universe and whatnot? I watched an episode where they talked about how outside of the known universe, there is a vast ocean of blackness. I was about 5 when I'd seen this, and I became obsessed with the idea of a vacuum of cold black nothingness that went on forever and ever and ever. And I became consumed with this idea of this obsidian yawning maw of nothingness. And it still freaks me the fuck out to this day, because I'll go there and I get lost in it.
I love that.
It's an unfounded fear, though, because I'll never know.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Quantum physics can happen. I'll get nerdy thinking about stuff like that, because forever there is a far different forever than here. Time works differently that far out. So, like, that's a whole other level to it.
Yeah, because wouldn't time actually slow?
Yes.
I mean, especially since we recently found out that gravity moves in waves, even though we were told many years ago by a certain someone that it does, and people said no. There's no gravitational waves in the expanse of basically nothing. So every second would be like a year.
Yeah.
That is truly hell. That's truly hell.
Oh yeah, because let's say you're only doomed to an average human's lifespan.
Yeah.
That is still at least a millennia. Like,
At the very least, yeah.
like,
I mean, and when you get that deep into it, though, you probably need medication,
yeah.
and that's where my mind goes. That's the sort of human I am. Strange that they let me raise children, but but I'm glad that other people actually kind of consider these sorts of things, because most people in general, you posit that idea to, and they're just like, yeah, that doesn't, no, you don't need to worry about that. But taking that into consideration, I know you guys are not the lyricists, but lyrically, I think Dad Hats also kind of deals with things that are less in kind of like the same ballpark as your average pop punk type band or pop adjacent hardcore infused band, or however you want to put it. Do you think there's a kind of a modicum of that same sort of like depth of thinking and fear involved in the lyrics?
I would say so. Fear, anxiety, frustrations, doubts. Like Craig's a very honest and kind of emotive vocalist. And he does all of that, like from the words to the vocal melodies. Like he is a mastermind at exactly how he wants things. And we're in good hands to trust him because his he writes hooks. That's it.
Yeah, and
Not
I go ahead.
Oh, let's say, I mean, not to mention, I mean, he just brings such a different perspective than, I mean, any vocalist I've been in a band with, right? His just outlook on using the words in the way he does and the things that he can make rhyme in the way that he does. It's really refreshing. It's yeah, I love it.
It seems to me that there's really there's something unique even to that time period that I'd mentioned your music kind of brings me back to, because of that, because there's a reality to the lyricism, and there is a gravity to the music. Do you think that that's going to be lost on people, or do you think people are really getting that?
I'd say best you could probably hope for is 50-50, right? But
Yeah.
I think there's also just two types of people in the world: people who listen to lyrics and people who listen to melody. And I know plenty of both, where it won't matter how dumb or how profound the lyrics are. They're like, yeah, I just never noticed what they were saying, which seems like a foreign world to me. Like I hyper focus on lyrics, but yeah, I think for the people who get them, they'll get them. Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the school where I would pore over the lyric sheet and the thanks lists and look at the artwork, see what even sorts of way, like the way the inks play off of the more like open spaces in album art. These things catch my eye. There's UV inks in certain records where you're like, whoa, I was always drawn to that. I was always drawn to the tactile experience of opening a record and seeing everything that went into it. That got lost for a very long time, but over the past probably 7-8 years, that art has been reinvigorated. When you were kind of diving into the way this record was laid out, did you sort of just trust Austin's taste, or were you like super involved with that?
I think Joe definitely a little bit more involved than the rest of us were. He's got a very creative mind, and he thinks in just totally different ways, right? So I think him and Austin working together on just different wavelengths, it kind of sets the stage for something really cool, right? Really unique, because it's like, what do you think of this? Oh yeah, I really like that idea. And what do you think of this? And yeah, and I mean, just seeing it in person, then it's like I said before, it's just it's really cool to see how it all came together. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'd add an extra shout out to Hayden. So Hayden is a tattoo artist here in Nashville who did all the artwork. So when you see the vinyl, there's little illustrations, and every variant actually has a different color illustration because, again, Austin's a genius. Like, that's such a cool move.
Yeah.
But got to give a shout out to him because all the little we had him sit down with the songs, and he drew kind of tattoo style illustrations of what the song made him envision or what he connected and pulled from the song. So kind of cool. We were talking about lyrics before. Here's a literal artistic interpretation of what those lyrics meant to a complete stranger.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Another thing that kind of burns my mind a little bit is like dad hats. Where does the name come from? I mean, obviously, like, we all wear dad hats and stuff, but was there something like, I'm putting on my dad hat now, or is it just sort of like a thing?
It was kind of a joke, right? Like,
I figured.
I mean, we're playing together, and we're just kind of having fun, and we weren't really doing anything serious with it, and it came time to like, well, we got to call ourselves something, and I mean, we all wear dad hat style hats, so if we're gonna draw a line, I guess we could draw it there. But the idea came up, like, what about dad hats? So we Google it, and it's what was it? The dad hats, I think, was around, and it was like they weren't doing anything, and it was crazy to me that there was no actual band that was like doing anything that was called dad hats.
Yeah.
So we just ran with it.
Speaking of hats, you're wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates hat. Are you a Pirates fan?
I am.
I am too. Big.
Oh,
big.
I'm sorry for both of us.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we can't win. I mean, Steelers fan, Penguins fan. I'm a Pennsylvania boy. But being a Pirates fan is kind of like accepting the fact that your life is going to suck every year.
100%. I'm also a Pennsylvania boy.
Where from?
Originally from kind of the State College area.
Oh,
very small town, Phillipsburg, right around there. But I spent most of my time in the Harrisburg area.
I'm from the Scranton area, so yeah, you're not that far from where I'm at.
Right.
There's something in the air and in the water in this part of Pennsylvania, because we have some really great bands that came from here and some really fucking terrible bands that came from here.
Yes.
But yeah, you guys are kind of like in a hotbed for really fantastic musicians. I have so many friends who are expats from this area who moved there to make music. What is kind of like the temperature of the music scene there, especially for what you're doing?
It's very country. Obviously,
well, yeah, obviously,
it's Nashville. I'll say that one, there's a lot of great venues, but there's been a lot of hardships in the area around, like, some classic venues that cater to more our style of music shutting down. So that's been kind of a bummer, and I think we would love to see more bands like us, or at least that we've played well with, come up into the area, or at least tour in the area more. That's the other thing. Like, a lot of bands, you would think they would come through Nashville, but for some reason, anytime I want to see somebody that I really want to see, seems like I'm driving to Atlanta to go see them. Like they're just not coming through Nashville for some reason.
That's strange too, because it is like Music City. And there's so many good bands in Nashville. Like Palm Ghosts is from Nashville. They're phenomenal. Like there's so much good music happening in that town, and it almost feels unheralded just because bigger acts aren't coming through and taking on these local bands to like open for them. What the fuck is happening? Like you could be in Austin, Texas, and have a viable career as a local original band because so much happens around Austin. Nashville is the heart of the biggest music machine in the United States, but no one's coming. No one's touring through. Like that doesn't compute.
Yeah. I mean, at least mid-range.
Is it because of those hardships of these venues shutting down though?
Well, yeah, a lot of the like Nate was talking about, a lot of the venues, like the punk rock, indie venues, rock venues. There have been some that have shut down recently, and it kind of sucks because that was where you would go to see that kind of music, right? It's not that like, some of the bands that we listen to don't come through here, but they're just it's on a bigger scale, right? Like they'll play like an amphitheater, or like there's Bridgestone Arena, so it's just those venues that really embrace that music and added on local bands, like you said, to kind of get their names out there, like don't really exist here anymore. But we still have like some venues that are really good to us that we play at a lot and like all the time. So it's not completely dead. I mean, it's still there's still some places to go see some live local bands here, which is cool.
Yeah. But not to like beleaguer the point, but anyone listening, if you're involved in booking bands in Nashville, like what the fuck? Get on top of it, right?
It bears repeating again. There is also like, if you want to go see a local country band, just spin in any direction and throw a dart. You can see any local country band you want to see. But if you want to see indie bands, if you want to see hardcore, like I don't even know where you would see a hardcore band, probably Dark Matter. But like that style of music, it's hard to get, those type of bands touring through. And then Tyler was saying, like for the bands big enough to book the amphitheaters, that's like the only way they're coming through. And at that point, they've got like a whole touring lineup. They're not looking for the local opener.
It's a package. So if Lagwagon comes through, they're probably opening for someone bigger than them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's disheartening. That's disheartening because, living in an area like Scranton that is not, seen as a nationally viable stop on a touring package, we always got traffic. Always. There was always a draw for some reason for, if somebody like Lagwagon, if somebody like even Rise Against in their early days would come through, they would draw. I mean, I was 11 or 12 years old when 7 Seconds played an arcade in my town.
Damn.
Like that's how I cut my teeth going to shit like this. And it seems to me like these bigger cities that are, they're music towns, especially Nashville, for that not to still be a presence is kind of a crime. Just my opinion. But then again, I live in an area that the band Breaking Benjamin came from. And those guys knew about the hardcore scene, and they knew about like all the good music that was in the area, and they just decided to play jock bullshit rock and make a name off of it. And hey, God bless them. You want to make that money, good for you, but no one in this area likes them anymore. Thankfully.
Oh, for sure.
Thankfully.
But they are making that money, I'm sure.
And
Breaking Benjamin's still pulling them in.
Oh yeah, and they still suck. They still suck. Like one of the worst bands I've ever heard in my entire life. Told them that, I think this. I don't care. I'm very honest. So, bearing that honesty in mind, when I say to you that I really have such an affinity for this record, it's very honest, very austere. I just think that under the right circumstances, this is the type of record that will have legs for years to come. Austin is the person to release it. Sweet Cheetah will definitely get the word out on it. It is really, really that cutting and vibrant. Let's say you get the opportunity to just maybe jump on a tour, or none of you are in the position to do that because you're all in corporate jobs and the like. But if you did get that chance to jump, even if that opportunity was, I don't know, let's spitball. Let's say like No Effects is breaking up, but like somebody of that ilk were to be like, well, we will take you on a 6-week tour. Would you have the faith in it to make that jump, or would you just be like, thanks, but we're good?
I think like I said, it would depend on the offer, but can I tell you what I've always envisioned would be like wild success?
Yeah.
Like for me, best case scenario is that our unwillingness to tour, or not even unwillingness, the reality of the situation to tour makes us that enigmatic that we just play festivals. We commit to one weekend every couple months, and we get on stage and play in front of thousands of people, and then we don't play again until you see us the next festival. That, to me, best case scenario. That's the best of both worlds.
That is kind of the best of both worlds.
That's the plan.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope you get it, because I interview a lot of bands, okay? And most of them I like. As a matter of fact, strike that. Every band I have on here, I like. I don't agree to an interview with a band if I don't think that they're good. But not only do I like the band, I like this record so much that I'm willing to take hours out of my wife's birthday to make sure that this comes out tomorrow on the same day as the record, so I can say I did the record release podcast episode for this record.
I love that, man. Thank you. Do whatever you need to do to fix it in post so that we don't sound stupid.
I'm sure I sound stupid. Come on. I mean, I'm a master at editing. People think, "Oh, you do such like intelligent interviews." Like, no. I just know what to cut out so I don't sound like an ass cannon.
I hope that stays in.
I will leave that in, because I'm nothing if not self-deprecating.
Yo, and thank you to your wife for letting you for letting you take the time out then.
She doesn't know. Are you kidding me? My wife is like officially the producer of this podcast. It's her baby. This was her idea. We were on lockdown. She was sick of me puttering around the house and drinking wine to excess and hanging out with my now 3-year-old. I'm way too old to have a 3-year-old son. Okay. I'm almost 47. My kids are 18 years apart. And she was just sick of me puttering around and playing with the baby and not, playing music anymore, not working, not doing anything other than getting fat, drinking, making food all the time. She's like, you need to get back into journalism. Why not do a podcast? I said, no, that's stupid. Everybody has a podcast and nobody cares about them. My wife said so. Here I am.
That's smart, man. Look.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a motto to live by. I keep it in the studio.
There's a reason. There's a reason for that adage, because if your wife's not happy, you're not happy.
Oh.
People who cheat don't make sense to me because they're obviously suicidal.
Yeah.
You know, what the fuck are you thinking? You have to go home. You have to go to sleep. Do you want to sleep alone? Do you want the kids to only see you on weekends? No, don't do that shit. But
Also,
if
just
we
be a
were
decent human being and have a conversation like a grown
yeah.
up and say, "Hey, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore."
yeah, but people want that best of both worlds scenario, and that doesn't make sense to me either. I would rather just be with the same person and be like, we're good, wonderful,
100%. Have you okay, so obviously how long have you been married for?
I've been married for 5 years.
Okay. So we're on 6. Have I don't know if you've had this moment with your wife, but sometimes my wife and I will just be sitting around and just think about it. We're like, fuck, can you imagine like dating again in this day and age?
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I
No,
have been together
thank
for
you.
10 years. So like we've been between dating and marriage 10 years.
Yeah.
I can't even fucking fathom the idea of getting into the dating pool at my age, the way the
Yep.
world is now. And my wife and I met on the internet. And
Really?
we lived a block away. A
Uh,
block away.
Whoa.
We had to go on the internet to make it a block away. And a block away in this town, 8 houses, bro.
yeah, that's gonna be a sick song if you don't have one already.
I do have the song.
Nice.
Good. You'll have to send it to us.
I will actually. But there's just that's kind of like an ode to the time, right? Even 10 years ago, to find your neighbor on the internet and fall in love and then figure out, wow, hey, you're my neighbor. Come on, dude. You don't go for walks.
Right? Well,
You don't
what's funny
exercise?
is
What
I
are you
feel
doing?
like I almost feel like that would be more commonplace today because people don't venture out and people don't connect with other people like they used to. Like I could totally see not even blinking an eye at somebody that's like, yeah, like I didn't realize they were 2 doors down because we all live in a vacuum now.
Yeah, but I don't know. To me, it still feels like I'm a doofus, and you know, if I had run into my wife in public, I don't even think I would have had the balls to have approached her. But behind, the computer screen, I was like, okay, I'm all right. I'm all right. I can do this. The first time I ever tried internet dating, the first person I ever hit up internet dating, the first anything. Boom, boom, one message. Together for 10 years. With a
Works,
chick.
it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm either the luckiest Pollock on planet Earth or I'm the luckiest Pollock on planet Earth.
You should get the that app should be like paying you money for your story. Like you should be in a commercial. Like for sure.
I really should. I've never, and all the time I've done this podcast, I don't think I've ever told that story. So this is one for the books, guys.
I love
Hell
that. Dad Hats loves love. So we love hearing stories like that.
I do too. I think that is an underappreciated commodity in this day and age. People are so cynical and so kind of like hyper focused on the self and their identity and what they mean and no, it's life is about not only community but about love, because our parents, even for a fleeting moment, loved one another. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. It kind of makes sense. But if you were to kind of like leave the listening audience with a thought or a message about what this record means to you, what would that be?
You want to go first, Nate?
I'm still thinking. You can go ahead if you've got it. It's a good question.
It is.
I know how I feel about it. I got to think about what it means to me.
I would say on a personal level, in retrospect, like kind of looking back, and I think the timing that we wrote everything has so much meaning because, we wrote most of these songs during the pandemic, right? So it was just a very crazy time to be alive and seeing how people react to the situation. It was just a crazy, we said it at the beginning, is one of the things that I'm most proud of what I've done with my music career. And I know the other guys share the same sentiment, but, I hope when people listen to it, it just means something. They can listen to a song and like, this is my new jam, or, like, I like the lyrics of this song. It's just, to me personally, music has always just been about the feeling of it, right? It's any song that you listen to, you can draw your own conclusions of what the lyrics are about, or like, oh man, that guitar part is just, it makes that song, right? So you want to listen to it over and over, right? And it gets stuck in your head, but you can't get enough of it. I just want to make music like that for people, to where they listen to it and something on the album just catches them in that way.
And I think you've succeeded in that, to be quite honest, because there is something about this record that is intangible that grabs me. That, there is that guy that loved Jimmy Eat World when Clarity and Static Prevails came out, that recognizes the same melodicism, even though they don't sound the same. That makes me love it. But there's an intangible too, right? Everybody we all love musically has an intangible element. And I think you have that. And that's a rare commodity. And I think that's important to make that distinction. So what do you got, Nathan? What do you got for me?
Yeah. So I think I just have to build off what Tyler was saying. Like, this album is kind of like a little time capsule for us of the things that were going on, during the pandemic. And, we were getting to a point where when we were all in a room together right before the pandemic, like we would be working on stuff, but like, I feel like in retrospect, we were trying too hard. Like we knew we were going for a second record. And I think we were just like, okay, we're in writing mode. And then it's like when you get 4 creative people in a room and it's like, okay, the focus today is be creative, turn it on. We were butting up on a lot of frustrations with that. It wasn't quite working for us. And then all of a sudden we were stuck indoors and we couldn't see anybody and we couldn't play shows and we couldn't do anything. And it kind of drove us insane. And I think it led to, I know for me personally, like I put more work into my guitar playing during the pandemic than I have in my entire life. And I just was trying to write riffs that in retrospect, I'm really upset that I now have to go out and play live because I really pushed myself on a couple of these that like when we're playing them live, I'm like, shit, this is dumb. Why did I do that?
like some serious Greg Ginn type shit. Like, how did I play that? Oh, I'll just bang it up.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like,
what tuning is this in?
You know what? I'm just going to put on a really fast delay that makes it sound like I'm picking really fast, but really I'm just going to hit those one notes. But no, it's what it means to me is the pride I feel in like overcoming that, that thing that was holding us from even being in a room together. Like I would have never thought that we could have written like I said, the best thing we've ever written on any band that we've ever been in, like, and do it away from each other alone, do it right, put it out into the world. And then, even then, the pandemic ended and I think we were only like a couple months away from like finishing up the masters and going like, all right, we're going to put it on the internet. And then Austin came into the picture and we sat for another year and a half. I think originally we were like, okay, cool. 6 months, we'll put vinyl out in between, supply demands and Adele cutting in front of us.
Fucking Adele.
Fucking Adele. Dude, let me tell you,
Who needs that?
there was
I mean, who needs that many records? Seriously.
No, you don't.
They're all just sitting in a Barnes and Noble right now collecting dust.
Yeah, there was a period of time anytime we doom scroll through Instagram when some semi big band is like, check out the 17 variants I've put out on the record. It's like, you assholes. Come on. We just want to put this record out.
There's an opulence to what she did and narcissism, but I don't think it was her. I just think it was the label. But still, like you realize that, having worked in record stores for a very long time and running record stores for a very long time, invariably, even the most popular records, about 20 to 25% of them get sent back to the one stop you bought them from. Okay? They're not all getting sold. They're not all getting sound scanned. Her records that held up the entire market for umpteen years, half of them are going to go into a landfill.
Yeah.
That's sad shit. Whereas the couple thousand you guys are going to put out are going to be loved and treated as a fetish item. Like people are going to open them up and they're going to love the way they smell. They're going to love what they're looking at. Like people like me. That's more to me, even though the money doesn't show it. That's the more important aspect, the tactile experience, the fetishized experience. People who are going to love this and love it for the entirety of their lives. They're going to carry it with them forever. That's the important part. That's the point of making music.
Yeah.
To bring someone something that is going to reverberate throughout the entirety of their life, be it a year, be it 50 years. That's impact. Pop music of the ilk of the aforementioned artist is as disposable as a McDonald's sandwich. It is.
When you put it that way.
I didn't say it, but
Well, I'm a music snob, so I said it, and I'm good with that.
It was well said.
Thank you.
yeah.
So I don't want to tie you guys up all night, but is there anything else you'd like to leave us with this evening? Kernels of wisdom, secret codes to Contra, anything like that?
You know what? I'll leave you with a nugget because I feel like this is kind of this type of podcast. It's very cerebral. And we were talking about Beatles. And every time we talk about Beatles, I smile a little on the inside because there's a mantra that I live my life by, which is there are people who don't like the Beatles. And that is my constant reminder to myself in a humbling way of like, look, if we put out this record and 3 people listen to it, like, be stoked that 3 people listen to it. And if, because you're never going to please everybody. There are people who don't like the Beatles. You can put out the greatest thing in the world and there's always going to be people who don't like it. So just don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah.
That's my nugget.
That makes sense to me because anyone who doesn't like the Beatles, really? Are you okay?
It's okay to have bad taste.
It's okay to suck at life, but maybe try the Beatles. Like you hate Bruce Springsteen, you never heard Nebraska? Buy Nebraska and grow up a little bit.
Favorite Beatles song?
Ooh.
Glass Onion.
I'll go first. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm gonna go Eleanor Rigby.
Oh, good one.
Don't Let Me Down.
Oh, classic.
Now that's a bluesy cut. To
It
choose
is.
that, like that's telling because you can go where I went. Glass Onion. It's psychedelic Beatles, but it's not weirdo psychedelic. It's not, Strawberry Fields or anything Ringo would have sang on. But looking through a Glass Onion there's that weirdo lyrical bent to it, but it's still a straightforward Beatles song. Okay. Eleanor Rigby is post first wave Beatles, still a little psychedelic, but still straightforward.
Yeah.
Now, when we get into your selection, Tyler, that's sticky. It could go both ways. Why do you think that's your choice?
So I'll tell you how I actually came to know of the song.
Okay.
So when I was younger, and to this day, one of my favorite albums of all time is, well, I should say like rock albums, is Matchbox 20, Yourself or Someone Like You. And I wore that out, right? And I had a VHS of them that they played a live show in Australia and they covered Don't Let Me Down. And I was like, what is this song? Like, it's not on any of the album, and I'm like, I'm not even thinking like, oh, this is just a really old song. And, they liked it and they covered it, right? So I did some digging and I found the Beatles version and just fell in love with it. There's something about that, just that first hit, and then the vocals come in with the,
It shifts and the B3 kicks in. That Hammond
Yep.
B3 organ. Dun, 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 dun. There is really something tectonic about the verse to the chorus. They're vastly dissimilar yet work so perfectly in tandem. It makes a lot of sense to me that you would like that. What's funny is I love Glass Onion, but my favorite Beatles record is Let It Be. It's the last record. It's the last record. It's not the White
Good
Album.
one.
It's not Sgt. Pepper's, but
Yeah.
there's something about the title track about like it's the requiem to the band. And the Catholic overtones of the song Let It Be, like, even though he's not really talking about the Virgin Mary, being a Catholic boy myself, coming from that world, it's putting a fine point on a perfect career, a perfect recording career, even though they hate each other at this point. It's crazy to think of it. So what's your favorite Beatles records then? I mean, I think that's the ultimate question, really.
Yeah, I'm torn between either White Album or Revolver.
Revolver's the turning point.
Yeah, that's a seminal record right there. And then
Yeah,
White Album stands on its own. It is just a front to back perfect piece of work.
Yeah.
I probably Hard Day's Night.
Ooh, good one.
Now, that's telling. That Hard Day's Night is actually probably their most, well, it's not their most rock and roll record, but it's their most commercially viable rock and roll record, because before that they had hits. Okay. And that, like, those early Meet the Beatles era, where they're doing their best to be Little Richard or that era.
Yeah.
That was their first record that was them, that was still a rock and roll album, no frills, before they started going down the Revolver Jacob's Ladder of it all. This tells me that you are, in essence, just a straight up rock and roller, and that's awesome. You're Iggy and the Stooges. You know what I mean? Like, you find the beauty in a no frills, like 70 AC/DC 74 Jailbreak. There's something just really great about that, and perfect, and boom, 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 boom. That's excellent. That's a guitar player's dream, right?
What's funny, Tyler's originally a drummer. Tyler taught himself how to play guitar for Dad Hats.
No shit.
Yeah, he never picked up a guitar before.
So, Nathan, what do you think? What are you thinking?
As far as,
like, what I said about that, like, the how telling it is to choose that that favorite Beatles record.
Oh,
And
yeah, no,
like,
I agree. And knowing Tyler, he does like a lot of like I'd agree with how he introduced himself at the beginning. He's a pop punk boy, for sure, through and through. But what is pop punk? But I mean, like
rock and roll.
the dissimilarities between pop punk and rock and roll are very few.
Almost
They
none.
are, yeah. Like,
And
I mean,
what is your,
Rancid, look at a band like Rancid, you know, that's they put the rock in punk rock. They're that band that's like, they are just a rock and roll band.
Yep, they're a rock and roll
Yeah.
band that likes ska a whole lot. So,
Well, Op
what is
Ivy,
your-
man.
Well, yeah, I mean, fortunately I got to see Op Ivy before they broke up, and that was fuck amazing. But what is
So
your
cool.
choice? What does your choice say about you as far as favorite Beatles record? Do you think, Nathan?
Oh, I don't know.
Because it's more for you. I think it's more of an exploratory thing, almost like trying to reach a different plateau. Whereas Tyler's definitely just not simplistically, but very purely keeping to what it is that makes rock and roll essential and vibrant and alive. What do you think your choice says about you?
Well, it's interesting. I've never really thought about it, but now I'm like, oh, this band makes so much sense because Tyler typically writes a lot of like the rhythm parts, and I'll come with the leads. And if I'm thinking of like Revolver and I'm thinking of White Album, like as
You're
they
looking
started
for the
getting to their
flourish.
more,
You're
yeah,
looking for
I
the
want
flourish.
delays, and you see these synths behind. I'm a big synth head. I like sounds
Mhm.
and textures and the placement of things and sending things to a tape machine and reversing them. Like that's the things I live for, and that now it's making so much sense.
Yeah, because like you have to have the purist and the weirdo. Otherwise, it's not going to make a whole ton of sense. I've been the weirdo in every band I've ever been in, hands down. Like I'm the weirdo as the vocalist and bass player and synth player in almost every band I've ever been in. I'm the weirdo. I'm the one that I'm like, well, Pink Floyd wouldn't have done that, so maybe I'll try what they did. Joy Division would have done that, so maybe I'll try that out. Not everyone thinks on that wavelength, and to have everybody on the same wavelength in a band does not turn out as well as you think.
No,
It really
you got to have
doesn't.
that push pull.
You have to have you have to have opposing forces in order for creativity to become interesting. Otherwise, it homogenizes and gets really dull really fucking fast.
Yeah,
That's the best part of being in a band. That's what, just being a solo project, if that's what you're looking for.
yeah, but I think so. That's the first step, right? But there's an integral second step that I think A plays a lot into why this record has worked for us, and B where I think it's going to benefit us going forward is we've reached a point in the band where we have a lot of trust for each other as well. So we still have the push and pull, and we understand, Tyler's going to come with this, I'm going to come with this, and we're going to challenge misconceptions as we go. But like, we now have the trust in each other after having done 2 records and, really taking our time with this one to go like, okay, whereas before maybe we would have like fought over those opposing viewpoints. Now we're like, you know what, let's just trust the process. We know this works, and we've been working smoother and more creatively because of that. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Any good band has to have that push pull, and then if you can get the trust involved, that's what makes a band last. And the bands that you see implode that have all the creativity in the world, it's probably because they never learned that trust.
Yeah, and they lost the love somewhere.
Yeah.
Like Lennon and McCartney, they lost the love there, and they were, as much as George Harrison was a fucking genius and Ringo Starr was kind of like, he was good, he was there, he hung out,
He was a drummer.
he was yeah, but furthermore,
He was the drummer.
was he the best drummer?
Mm.
That's questionable, because apparently McCartney went in and recut drums on him behind his back. I don't know how true that is. That's like rock and roll lore. That could be completely false. But Ringo was good. Ringo was fun. He was the comic relief almost, and you have to have that. But the two opposing forces of co-lead singer, co-songwriter, that push pull, that's the same thing as the two guitarists. You know what I mean? I mean that could become tenuous. That could become very volatile if there's not a trust, a love, and I think a set idea of what the roles are when you go into it. I'm going to write the rhythms, or I'm going to play the rhythms. I'm going to go more towards the leads. And if you're both comfortable with that, and that there's a reciprocity and a push and pull and a flow to that, you're golden. If
Yeah.
there's a power struggle, done. No matter how long you're a band, you're done.
Yeah.
I don't see that here.
No, we really just kind of let the music take us where we want. But Tyler, I think you were going to say something.
Well, it's especially like when we're writing, I can lay down an entire song from literally intro to end of the song, right? And it'll come out one take or whatever. I can send it to Nate and we'll go down the chain from there. And it's by the time it gets to, oh, well, okay, we have this song demoed and here's the vocals now. And we get to hear, Craig's, his perspective on the song, lyrically, vocally, his melody, that just makes it that much more exciting. It's almost like just reliving it over and over again. You know what I mean? And it's it could turn out completely different than what you originally had in your head. But you also have to get to the point where you realize, like, there's 3 other dudes in this band who are going to have their own creative input that's going to make us what we are. And that's the reason we sound the way we do. You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of it.
Well, when you realize you're writing parts and not an entire song, I think that's the get here. Like, even if you were the first person with the first riff, that's not the song. That's your part in the song. There's 1, 2, 3 other people who are going to give their input and make it a song. It's a band. It's not you plus 3. And when you go into it like that, with that idea that I'm going to just be a part of something, be a cog in a wheel, and I love this wheel enough to be a cog in it, that's the beauty. That's the expression of love. And that's trust.
Yeah.
The trust we were talking about is trusting everybody else enough to expound upon something you've written or an idea you've brought forth and make it better. And you believe it's better for their involvement. That's my 2 cents.
I couldn't agree more.
So, gentlemen, I have kept you for a long time. I've loved every second of this. And I think what we've really figured out is you can figure out a lot about a person by their favorite Beatles song and record.
I love it. You got to work this into every episode. You got to work this in.
I don't know. Like, if I have like a band like Neurosis on, those guys like the Beatles too, but I don't know if it'll work in the same way. It definitely applies here and it works here, and this has been a ton of fun. So when the next single, record, whatever comes out, would you be so kind as to keep me in mind again for the next go around?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, man. And
you.
for your kind words. It fills our hearts. Dad Hats loves love, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
Yeah, you too, man.
Night.
Bye.
There it is, folks. My interview with the boys from Dad Hats, the record release show for Spill. This has been a total honor. I love this record, as you've heard me say over and over again. I had such a good time with these two. They are such funny cats. They are heartfelt, beautiful guys. They love love. What else could I say? It's already been said. So, it's my wife's birthday. I've burned through enough of her time today. I'm going to get this episode out and go enjoy the love of my life on her birthday. They've been Nathan and Tyler. I've been Peter. They are dad hats. You've been beautiful. And this has been the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. I hope you have somebody you love tonight. Go out and buy this record. Good night, y'all.